very hot in Israel these days. I just want to tell you about the latest RebbeSoul song. It's a remake of an old classic called Tzena. Tzena was actually written way back in 1941 by two soldiers in the Jewish brigade of the British Army here. Before it was actually Israel, before 1948, it was still Palestine at the time. And Yechiel Chagiz wrote great lyrics, very, very cleverly written lyrics in Hebrew. And Issachar Miron put the music to them, and they were two soldiers. Issachar Miron is now, I think, at the time of this recording, around 91 years old, living in New York City. And he invited me to do a modern version of this song, which I did. The original Tzena, for those of you that don't know it, it kind of goes Tzena, 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 chayalim b'moshava, and the groove is like a real boom chick thing. We call it, like Now there were at least 600 cover versions of this song, believe it or not. Almost all of them, at least the ones that I heard, had this boom chick thing, which to me, just in these days, it just kind of sounds corny. So I thought, well, a different way I can do it is to put 4 on the floor instead. So Tzena, 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 Tzena. In trance music, they use that all the time. A lot of African music, they use it. And so before I went over to meet with Issachar in New York, in his home and his studio, and yes, at 91, he still has a full working studio and works in it every single day. I mean, I probably am not even going to live that long. And he's got engineers coming and going all the time and musicians. It's really something to see. Anyway, before I went over, I put together just a little rough sketch of what I thought it would be like. I put 4 on the floor, African style. And I think I may have even thought of kind of a clever little guitar line, like something like this. And the chords are... But I didn't want to play it like that. I wanted to keep like the African vibe, so instead I did something more like this, like... I love African guitar playing. I probably played something like 4 or 5 guitar parts in this song because I just had so much fun doing it. And I love African guitar because it's actually really simple, and it's usually really happy sounding. And it was just really, really fun putting it together, and then you interweave all the parts in the same way that when you put together like funky stuff. It's usually the interaction of all the different instruments and the parts that makes it kind of interesting. So anyway, I put that together. Went over to his place, and he liked it, and we talked a little bit, actually a lot. I ended up staying there for hours, and he told me so much about this song that I never even knew. First of all, I didn't know it was covered over 600 times. I didn't even know who did it. Turns out, when they first did it in '41, it became kind of a local hit in this area, in what's now Israel. In 1950, the Weavers did it, thanks to Pete Seeger, who was playing banjo in the Weavers, and that was in 1950, and it charted. It was on the Billboard, I think, number 2. Made it to number 2 on the Billboard charts. And after that, a whole bunch of very famous stars in America decided to pick up on it, and they started covering it. And these were huge, huge artists at the time. People like Bing Crosby, Judy Garland, Frank Sinatra, eventually Ray Charles, Pearl Bailey, Carmen McRae, Richard Tucker, the great opera singer, who actually did it in the original Hebrew. And the way these other artists did it is they did it in English, but the English actually had nothing to do with the original Hebrew, and the original Hebrew, the lyrics are really, really well written. They're very clever, and they're kind of based on Shir HaShirim, as I remember. Tzena means like to go out, and they're calling the girls to go out and go watch the soldiers. These guys were soldiers, and they were like 20 years old, and I think they wanted the girls to come and hang out with them, the words that were written, actually what happened was Pete Seeger was in the Village Gate, which still exists in the Village in New York City, and he was doing the song. He did it in Hebrew because that was all that existed at the time. And Gordon Jenkins, who was the musical director, I think, for a lot of the big artists back then, like Bing Crosby, for example, was in the club, and he asked Seeger, like, well, how come you're doing this in Hebrew? And Seeger just said, well, that's all I know. I don't know that there is another version. So Gordon Jenkins went downstairs, and in about half hour he put together English lyrics, which actually had nothing to do with the original lyrics, but they just worked really well with the melody, so they sang really well. And eventually it got into the hands of these other artists, as I mentioned, Bing Crosby, and they ended up doing usually those lyrics. One of the coolest versions came a little bit later, and you can even find it on YouTube. Chubby Checker did it. And Chubby Checker slowed it way, way down, and he did it kind of an island feel, like this Caribbean smooth island feel. And he had yet different lyrics, which were based a little bit closer to the original Hebrew, but still not exactly. And the drums were like, the guy used brushes and everything. It was really, really nice. That was one of the coolest versions that I heard, and that was the only one that didn't have that boom chick sound all the way through it. And I just thought it was really great. So anyway, you can certainly listen to this. There's a link in this blog where you can go to the little YouTube link and you can hear it, and you can see a collage there that Shlomit Levy, the great singer that I'm producing and working with, she put this together, this little collage. And she's actually the first voice to start singing the verse in this, and she's actually doing it in a little bit of a different Hebrew verse, kind of like a woman's lib version, I guess. And then the guys take over after that, and it kind of winds its way through a lot of different people. It starts off with some Zulu vocals that came to me courtesy of a really, really good friend of mine, a great musician in South Africa who really knows this kind of music really well. This kind of feel called township music, which is what the music really sounds like, township music. And that's Keith Hutchinson. And he sent me these Zulu vocals, and he played some great keyboard parts, and all that's in the song. Starts off with the Zulu vocals, and then there's a great, like a house music singer with lots of soul, who's in London, and his name is Frankie Farrow. And you can hear him also at the very beginning doing this little improv thing. It's very distinctly Frankie, and one of the great singers that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. One of the first singers I ever worked with when I first started playing professionally in California. And we've kept in touch over the years. And Shlomit does really, really nice vocal stuff, and she layered a lot of voices and had some really nice harmonies. And then the male voice that comes in is Devere Cohen, who is also a great singer who does a lot of different stuff around Israel, and he's in a lot of different bands, and a very in-demand singer here as well, just like Shlomit is. So he comes in, he does his thing, and all throughout this you can hear another vocalist who's really, really wonderful, and also a good friend, is Roy Levy. And Roy was in a band called Chateau Nouveau, along with some other guys also that I know. And Roy has a really clever way of just kind of fitting in like a little word or a phrase at just the perfect place to spice up a song. And he does it throughout the whole song. It's really great. If you listen on the ride out at the very end, you can really, really hear him there. Let's see, from there, let's see, we go to another one of our really favorites is Jaime Granco, who's from Argentina. And he did a whole thing in Spanish, which is a riot. It's really, really great. And if you listen carefully, you can hear these kind of like mandolin-sounding things. Actually, that's my balalaika, which I have right here somewhere, if I can find it. Here it is. That's my balalaika coming in over there. But I'm playing it sort of like very South American sounding. And that comes in when he's doing his part, and it's really, really a riot. I wish I knew Spanish so I could really appreciate it even better, but I just love the way it sounds. And then from there it slips into another really, really great part, and that's Tzena Melessa. And Tzena, one of my favorite people too, came in with his girlfriend, wife-to-be, actually her name is Mulu, and they did these Ethiopian vocals in Amharic, and they are just they're beautiful. And even though it's from a totally different part of Africa than where this groove comes from, which is South Africa, they just work really, really well together. And anyway, you'll hear that there are a lot of African vocals underneath all that. The Zulu stays in and out, or comes in and out throughout the whole song. And then there's some really nice African harmonies which come courtesy of Shlomit and even me. Actually, I did a little bit of singing in this. And then there's a ride out toward the end. Jaime from Argentina does like a Spanish rap at the end, which is really, really cool. And then it goes into everyone kind of coming in and kind of joining the party, basically, is what it is. And that's a phrase I picked up from the engineer who mixed this very, very well. One of my favorite engineers, and that's Amit Golan in Jerusalem. So you can hear his fine work in this as well. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed Tzena. I had a really, really great time doing it, and it's a tribute to the songwriter who's still with us, and that's Issachar Miron, who invited me to do this. And he was introduced to me by a really good friend of mine who's also a songwriter. She does a lot of stuff, kids music, and right now she lives in the United States. She lived in Israel for a long time, and that's Rachel Limor, and she introduced us. So I'm very appreciative of her for doing that in the first place and getting the ball rolling. Okay, so I hope you enjoy the song. You can check out the YouTube thing, comment, pass it on to your friends, whatever you like. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll come up with a new blog hopefully soon. Bye.